Hello, and welcome to Jolene Knits a Lot. My name's Jolene, and this is my show about knitting with some talk about Christmas, preparations, and the occasional cocktail. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have changed locations, so my podcast may look a little different to you, partly to look a little bit more festive, and partly because it's COVID times, and that means that I have two junior high kids at home learning, and a husband who's working from home, and I myself am working from home, and so finding a creative place to podcast while not interrupting anyone's learning or work is tricky. So here I am, parked in front of my Christmas tree, and I'm so glad you could join me today. Today I have a whole bunch of Christmas gifts that I finished and some that I'm working on. I'm so glad you're here, so pull up your craft of choice, whether that's knitting or crochet or just hanging out on the couch, and let's get started. How have you been the last couple of weeks? How are things where you are? I live in Edmonton, Alberta, and our COVID numbers are rising and things are getting a little bit more restricted. Our junior high and high school kids have been asked to stay home from school to homeschool now until Christmas time. And so we're just getting used to a different pace. And I hope that you are managing to adjust to whatever life is throwing you right now. But it is getting towards Christmas time. It's the beginning of December, so we have decorated our house a little bit for Christmas. We've started doing some Christmas baking. I have big plans to make this week some hazelnut ginger biscotti. I also have some ginger chocolate chip cookies that I plan on making, possibly some other baking. I think some nuts and bolts are in my future, just some snack mix. All of this baking is not for me or my family, but part of it is just to have some Christmas sort of cheer, to feel a little bit normal right now. And I have plans to make some Christmas drop-offs to some friends and family. So baking is in my near future this week. Also, my family has been talking about getting a dog. My youngest is very, very pro-dog at this time. So this past weekend, we got a loaner dog. That dog is my brother's Corgi Newton. He's a very sweet little 2-year-old Corgi. And so we were trying on pet ownership. We'll probably do it again, maybe in the next few weeks, just to get used to what it's like to have a pet around. My brother and sister-in-law very kindly allowed us to love their dog, which is very thoughtful. But do you have pets? Are you new to pet ownership? Or what was it like when you got your first pet? I'd love to know. We're sort of in the beginning phases of that. So tell me what it's like having a puppy around. I'd love to hear from you. Today I am wearing, let's see if I can give you a better view of it. Ooh. This is my Strange Brew sweater. Strange Brew is a pattern by Tin Can Knits. I do love Tin Can Knits. This sweater pattern is for beginners to colorwork design. So the pattern itself, if you purchase it, allows you to insert your own colorwork design into some sort of calculated patterns. So you can insert your pattern and get a colorwork sweater that you've designed yourself. So this is my first foray into the Strange Brew pattern, and I used as inspiration some Ukrainian embroidery patterns that I found. My family is, both my parents come from Ukrainian immigrants, and one of the handicrafts that is very common in that sort of cultural area, I guess, is embroidery. Now, I have tried embroidery when I was a kid. I'm not terrific at it, but I love the patterns, and I love the sense of culture and the feeling that I get from these patterns that connect me to my mom and my grandmother and my family. So I based my colorwork design on some Ukrainian embroidery patterns. This rose is pretty common in sort of Eastern European type embroidery as well as knitting. So yeah, this is my Strange Brew sweater. I knit it using some sweet fiber yarns. It's a very cozy sweater. It's a DK, which is a weight that I really like. It's comfortable and it feels kind of like a sweatshirt, so it's a sweater that I have been reaching for more and more as the weather is a little bit cooler. Now, as I said, I have some finished projects that I wanted to share with you, and the first one is a cowl. Now, I feel like the last few episodes I've talked a lot about neckwear. So this is the last of the neckwear that I have for you right now. This is the Active Duty Cowl. It's a pattern by Les Garçons. They're a pattern writing duo out of Montreal, Canada, and this Active Duty Cowl is based on sort of camouflage patterns, and I think it turned out really great. If I back up, you can see the whole thing. This pattern has some shaping, so it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top, so it decreases every, I think, 10 rows to give you kind of a shaped cowl. And then the back side is a simple sort of alternating colorwork pattern, which makes it like a little bit of a break when you're knitting sort of from a rather intense chart on this side. So maybe I'll just pop it on so you can see what it looks like. Hey now, that looks pretty good. Again, if you're into color work, I think that this is a great pattern. It's a little bit complicated for sure. It's got a tricky chart in the sense that the whole thing is charted. No two rows are the same, and so you do have to be paying attention to what you're doing. But if you like color work and you like a little bit of a challenge, I think this would make a great gift for just about anybody on your Christmas list or any other list for that matter. It's very cozy. It sits really nicely. I like that it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top because it does kind of like hug in a little bit. All right. I think that I would make this again. And that's the Active Duty Cowl completed and back into the Christmas pile. Next up on my growing pile of Christmas gifts are the Boba Fett socks. You saw me talk about these earlier. Here's sock one. This is some sock yarn from Mustache Yarns, and I chose to knit these as a tube. I knit them straight down to the toe, and then I knit the toe in the striping sock yarn as well. And then I just snuck in a gray heel at the end as an afterthought heel. Partly I think because I wanted to use as much of this yarn as I could and then throw in a heel to maximize the effort. But you'll see in my other sock, these aren't, the yarn is much must match, but there is some user error. So you can see the toes are slightly different. For some reason on my first sock I ended up with a bit of green at the toe, and my second one I did not. Honestly, that doesn't bother me too terribly much. I like the colorway. It's the Boba Fett colorway as I continue to watch The Mandalorian every week. And I think that they will be appreciated and worn quite a bit by my husband, who is working in the basement and hopefully not hearing this right now. So these are the Boba Fett socks, knit in the Mustache colorway Boba Fett, and I just used a plain top-down knit tube sock with an afterthought heel. Now, my next gift that I've knit was sort of not a last-minute decision, but I talked about it a bit last week. Andrea Mowry came up with a new pattern for some socks called the Spark Socks, and they are sort of a continuation on her grouping of patterns, I guess. One is the Spark cardigan. She also has a pullover, which is a similar theme, and sorry. And so they sort of go together, and then the Sparks socks are sort of, again, a continuation of that sort of motif or pattern. So these socks were knit over a weekend. Andrea Mowry often has a sock knit along over the Thanksgiving in America holiday weekend, and I thought, well, since I'm knitting these socks as a gift, wouldn't it be great to get a pair out of the way quickly at the end of November? And so the cast on date was November 25th at 3 p.m. my time, Mountain Standard Time. And so I cast on, and I was surprised at how quickly these socks worked up. I used Spin Cycle dyed in the wool. This one was the Meadows colorway, and I used Sheepy's Metropolis in the Philadelphia colorway as my background color. So here, I'll show you one sock at a time. I like how the color of the dyed in the wool changes as you go. It gives these socks a really sort of interesting appearance. And there's the toe. Then you knit the heel at the end as sort of an afterthought heel. Now this pattern asks you to knit the foot portion of the sock for 4 inches less than you would normally like your sock to be, and then knit the toe, and then go back in and put the heel in. What I had forgotten to take into account was I was using a larger stitch count for this sock than I normally do, and that means there had to be more decreases on the toe and the heel than I'm used to. So the toe and the heel are actually a little bit longer than I would have expected, making this sock a little bit longer than I would have expected. I think what I'm going to do is give these socks to the recipient and see how they fit. And if I need to, I will make them a little bit shorter by pulling out the toe and just decreasing a little bit through the foot and then reknitting the toe. That's not a big deal. The other sock is similar but not the same, which is another perk of using the dyed in the wool, because the color variation changes throughout the sock. You can see this one's kind of got more of a foresty green here and kind of a bright, I don't know if you can see that, but more of a bright tealy green in the heel. So when together, these socks are definitely fraternal twins, but I like them a lot. And that is another gift for the gift pile, so that's very exciting. Now, having completed one set of Spark socks, I promptly cast on another pair partly because they knit up so quickly. Like, I was really surprised that I could knit a pair of colorwork socks starting on a Wednesday and finishing on a Sunday. Now that's all I worked on. I didn't work on anything else. I was pretty monogamous, but that is pretty good progress if I do say so. So I cast on another pair, and this is where I'm at with these. I'm using 2.5mm double pointed needles. This light blue, kind of almost sky blue color is the Spin Cycle dyed in the wool again. This colorway is Castaway, and it starts out with blues. It kind of moves to some grays, but if I pull out the ball, you'll see that there are some interesting sort of golden tones that should be coming up at some point. I plan on knitting this foot a little bit shorter than I did the first sock, so live and learn. I'll knit it maybe a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch shorter, and then we'll see how that one fits. I think that should be a little bit better for the people I am planning on knitting these for. So sock number 1, well underway. And this, I think, is my last Christmas gift that I need to knit, so that's going quite well, and I will for sure have these done by Christmas time. So that's exciting. Now, the only other things I have on my needles right now are some Advent skeins of yarn. Now, look away if you do not want to have your Christmas socks spoiled. I find that once you sort of open up the package or have a look at your Advent skein, you get a sense of what it's going to be like, even if you haven't seen all the colors knit up in a row. So the first one I'm going to show you is the Cozy Knitter 24 stripe Advent skein. I'm working on sock 1. I've gotten do you like my progress keeper? It's a popsicle that kind of looks like a penguin, which I think is pretty cute. And so I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself. What I like to do with my Advent socks is knit one at a time, and I knit 2 stripes a day. Occasionally I'll throw in an extra stripe so that by the 12th I can have sock 1 done, which means toes and heels, and then on the 13th I can start on my second sock. So this is sock number 1, and I've knit a few stripes now already. I used some Sheepy's Metropolis in the Naples colorway for the ribbing, and I'll use that also for the heels and toes. It's sort of, it's a little bit brighter on camera than it is in real life, but it's a really nice sort of Christmassy red, and I think it will be useful for other socks in the future. Now what I like to do is I like to knit myself an Advent pair of socks throughout the month of December, so that by Christmas I have a new pair of stripy socks. And then I put the other half of the skein aside, and this year what I did was I pulled that skein out in July and I knit some Christmas and July socks, and I gave those away as a gift. So from one skein of the Cozy Knitter 24 stripe Advent kit, I make 2 pairs of socks. This is my first sock. Each sock will have 24 stripes, and then I'll knit the toe and the heel. So this is the Cozy Knitter. And then I also have another Advent skein of yarn. This skein was the sort of a last minute decision to purchase these, partly because it just seemed sort of thematically appropriate, and it kind of spoke to me. So this is the Kirby Werby sock Super Shitty 2020 Advent skein. This is a skein based on the TV show Schitt's Creek, which my husband and I watched through the beginning of the quarantine, and every color is associated with a quote from somebody on the TV show. The TV show has sort of 4 main characters, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 sort of peripheral characters that have quotes. So it's fun every day knitting a couple stripes and then seeing what quotes were associated with those stripes. So this is a rather different sort of looking striping sequence. I think it's less Christmassy and more just sort of crazy eclectic stripes. I really, really like this incredibly vibrant pinky purple, especially right next to this tealy blue. So every couple of days I see some new colors forming, and it came with this really nice stitch marker that says, "Ew, David," which I really enjoy too. So these are my Kirby Werby Super Shitty 2020 Advent socks. Now I know that mini skeins or Advent calendars are quite popular, especially the ones with the mini skeins. And a couple of years ago, I actually designed a scarf pattern that would use about 10 grams of 24 different colors of a mini skein. And you could use ones from your stash, or you could use ones from an Advent calendar that you may have received. And so I thought I'd share that with you in case you're interested in making your own Advent scarf, or if you're looking for a pattern to use all of your fabulous little minis with, or your leftovers with. So if you give me a minute, I will show you a couple of versions of this scarf. I'm back. So I was telling you about my scarf that I designed a couple years ago. This is called the All Sorts scarf. This is going to be absolutely impossible for me to show you the whole thing in this very close-up view, but I'm going to stick some pictures in so you can have a look at it. It's incredibly long and cozy, and I knit it using all sorts of different leftover mini skeins that I had. It starts with some garter stitch. It's a relatively skinny scarf knit on the bias. Starts with some garter stitch, moves quickly into some stockinette stitch, and then every once in a while I throw in a different lace pattern. So here's one lace pattern, there's another one, a different one right here. That one's a little bit difficult to see, maybe that's better. But yeah, I just used all sorts of different leftovers that I had to make a really long skinny scarf. And if you knit about I would say less than 10 grams of your mini skein into the scarf every day, then by Christmas you could have a scarf too. Now this is the one that I knit. On the bias, it's very long. It's I find I like a long scarf because I like to be able to wrap something around my neck a few times. I also like to be able to, so I can double this scarf and then pull it through, and it's plenty long to do that. In fact, I could probably do that a couple times and have a nice length of scarf left. I don't like scarves that are too short. I find them a little bit fiddly and fussy if they don't hang nicely. So this is a very long scarf. I finished it with some tassels, just tiny tassels apparently, on the corners to weigh it down and for fun. Now, after I knit this scarf, I had been wearing it around a lot, and the owner of a local yarn store that I know asked me to knit one up for their shop. And I just got that sample back. It had been hanging out on a mannequin there for a couple of years. This is another version of the same scarf. I used a set of mini skeins that was 5 20-gram skeins in sort of a gradient that went from cream to like a lighter yellow to a deeper orange. Where's the deepest one? I think maybe that might be the darkest one, but that gives you an idea of the colors. And then I used this crazy all color rainbow almost yarn as another contrast color. And so this one used 1 full skein of yarn plus 1 set of 5 20-gram minis in a gradient. And again, a very fun scarf, every day knitting a little bit at a time. I found that it knit up quickly, and each section is pretty soothing. It doesn't take long to knit, a few rows of bias stitch every day or two. And so here's another version of the All Sorts scarf. This one used black cat tail. That's the that's the mini skeins in the Magic Carp colorway, and then this rainbow colored one was the Fairy Dragon colorway in black cat yarn as well. So if you're interested, this scarf pattern is available on Ravelry. I will leave a link to it in the show notes below, in case you're interested in knitting yourself an All Sorts scarf. Thanks for joining me in my new podcasting location. Hopefully it's temporary and my kids can get back to school. They miss their friends and they'd love to be out and about in the real world. But for now, and for safety, they're homeschooling and we're doing the best we can. I hope you're also doing the best you can. This December is going to look a lot different for most people. And I think it's important to keep the traditions when you can, and if you can't, find a fun alternative. My family and I plan on doing some downhill skiing tomorrow. There's a local ski hill that's about 10 minutes from my house, and we'll go for a few hours to get some fresh air and just to do something that we enjoy doing that feels really normal right now. I hope you're able to do the same thing. Maybe you can borrow a dog and take it for some walks. Or maybe you can do some Christmas baking and drop it off at your friend's place like I plan on doing. I thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that in the next couple weeks you find time to do something you really enjoy doing. I know I plan on knitting a lot. Bye.